The first time she saw me, she said, "You look like Jesus Christ on the cross." I was treated horribly. From the moment I got into the armored vehicle, I was being tortured one way or the other. It is when you're weak that you have to be strong. And that's really what kept me going. And there's no other choice.
Noureddin Bongo is the son of the former president of Gabon, who was captured, imprisoned and tortured during a coup to depose his father.
The people here have arrested me and my family.
Eton educated and working in London as a project manager, Noureddin says he was wrongly accused of embezzlement and corruption by those who seized power from his father, and he has been painted as a traitor and a criminal by his father's political enemies. Noureddin speaks to The Standard in his exclusive first interview, revealing the terrifying moment he was captured and taken away from his family, the horrific conditions he endured while imprisoned in the dungeons below the presidential palace itself, a battle for freedom in the face of lies and violence, and his fight now to rebuild his life.
I think my early life in Gabon, I would say, was very, very ordinary, in the sense that my father came in very late, and not very late, later in my life, and so I grew up. My mother was basically a single mother, very standard school, go back home, play with my toys. She worked a lot, so I got to see her only really at evenings. But apart from that, it was very normal. I went to a bilingual school, but it was more French school. My mother always had the dream of sending me off to a school like Eton, so she was sort of preparing me as early as she could for that. But I didn't have any real. My father only came later, so all that special side of things came later. Eton for me, well, I've done already enough years at Summerfield, so boarding wasn't. I was very used to boarding already. But I think Eton is just the way they describe it when you go from Summerfield to Eton is you go from a small pond to a kind of sea. There's so many more people, but it's more. You don't realize the exceptional aspects of Eton until you leave, because Eton will take the best out of you. Anything you want to do, they'll make sure you become, and you're at least preparing yourself as much as you can to become the best of what you really love. It brings you a lot of opportunity and broadens your horizons quite a lot. Even even in the years I was in Gabon, I was close to my mother's family, so they're all French. So it was a very French upbringing. And so when I went to England, it was more shit from French culture towards British culture. So even every time I went back to Gabon, and even in my later years, I never felt culturally at home. I'm very much British in spirit, and so I felt just like a stranger in strange land sometimes. Politics was never of my interest. I wanted to stay as far away from it as possible. Even my father never really put me pressure, except for the time where he really wanted me to come and help him for a short amount of time after a stroke. But before then, he didn't particularly want me to be involved in politics. And my mother was very much, no. I don't know of any other Bongos who were particularly looking to be prison after my father, but obviously my father being political, he would have probably campaigned with someone from his party, who was the next leader chosen by his party. But it was never the plan or will that a Bongo has to stay in power, no. The dynasty aspect of it is just more, my grandfather was president for a long time. And then my father came after him. That's the only, so obviously the number of years sounds long and like a dynasty, but no, it's just, my father did politics, loved politics, and his party chose him as a candidate, and he won. It's just as straightforward as that. There wasn't any unwritten laws or rules that it had to be a Bongo after him, no. So when the military came, I didn't realize straight away there was a coup. I was with my family and friends, and some military erupted and said the President Oligui, well, General Oligui at the time, sorry. General Oligui has ordered for you to be put to safety because there'd been an attack on in one Republican Guard base. And so my wife and I quickly went to get the kids. It's only when we got to the armored vehicle, they asked me to give my son to my wife, and then they said my wife and kids would follow after me. And so I went to the armored vehicle. It's only when I saw other people, friends, come into the armored vehicle that I realized, well, something's wrong. So I was like, no, I can't leave my wife and children. So I tried to get out of the armored vehicle to find them, and then the military pushed me violently back and started screaming to me, it's the end, it's finished, you're not finished. You tried to do a coup against your father. So at that stage, I thought it was a misunderstanding. It's only the moment I realized it was a coup, because at one point, I couldn't really hear, but I heard people screaming, Ali Bongo president. So I sort of assumed that he was elected. So in my mind, I was like, yeah, it's going to be sorted, it's a misunderstanding. And then sometime later, I heard military people screaming, Oligi president. And that's when it dawned on me and I realized that it was a coup. It was, so I was explained that sometimes you forget events, they're so traumatic. It's strangely, even the tortures and all the stuff I remember vividly. The little gap I have is that moment I give my second son to my wife, and then the part I get into the armored vehicle, I think I was just in trance. I zoned out there, and I think that was the most difficult moment for me. I was treated horribly. My therapist sent me a list of all the ways of torture, and I realized from the moment I got into the armored vehicle, I was being tortured one way or the other. For example, when they actually sent me to prison, I was in an empty cell, in the dark. There was one light bulb which would turn on at night, but in the day it would turn off, so it was dark in the day. And it was a completely empty cell, there was nothing to do. They would occasionally flood my cell to make sure, there was no bedding or mattress, so I'd sleep on the concrete. So they'd flood the cell to stop you from sleeping and get mosquitoes to bite you. And throughout that, they would starve us, so they gave us one bowl of rice with one sardine, not like one individual sardine, that was it for the day. At one point, I created 2 different meals, so I had a conversation with 2 other meals, so 3 of us just talking to each other. I actually did that on purpose to try and keep sanity. I don't know if the therapist would say it's the right thing to do or not, but throughout it, there was never a moment where we were treated fairly. Even later, when we were held in the underground of the palace with my mother, we had no contact with the outside world. We couldn't talk to our family. Our lawyers couldn't come see us. They would come. There was more. The torture there was more psychological. So they'd come, and no access to a shower. The first shower I had since the 29th of August was my mum had very sadly tried to commit suicide when we were underground in the palace. And so they had to move us to a hospital. And in that room, there was a shower. And that was in the first shower I was able to take for all those days, and I cried. Apart from that, it was just a sink. But yeah, so no point in that whole ordeal were we treated fairly. What kept me going was my need to get back to my family, my wife and children. That was my only one objective. I would do exercise every day. I would walk around my cell every day. Even in the underground of the palace, I would do push-ups. I would keep as healthy as I could be, just to make sure I would get back to them. And strangely enough, I didn't even get sick once, not even cold once. I knew I had to keep going until that moment. It always hurts when people have a wrong image of you, and there was so much propaganda done to destroy our reputation in that sense. Especially that I think the coup happened because my father, at least at the time I was close to him, so really wanted to put an end to all corruption, and putting in the rules, the procedure, making sure it can't happen, people got frustrated by it, which created the sentiment and the support the League got to actually do the coup. If people actually spend time and look at who Oligi surrounded himself with, one can quickly understand that his aim is not to end corruption, it's just to actually get it going again. I mean, not again, but actually getting going. Personally, that's my opinion, and you could see it from the people around him. The cruelty humans are capable of doing, regardless of any bond one can have. Oligi was someone I was considered close. He was very protective of my family and I. He would come and he would come to basically every birthday when we were in Gabon, to my children's birthdays. So for someone to be able to turn around like that and order violent torture against me, it just, for me, anyone is capable of horrible things. But at the same time, throughout the ordeal, there were some beautiful human beings who showed kindness in the most difficult times, and I wouldn't expect them to. When they were in prison, one day they had to put me in general population because the UN were doing, which were visiting all the prisons, the detention centers, and so they had to put me in general population. And there were some people who they would say, look, they were done for horrible crimes, but they're horrible people per se, but they were the ones who showed me the most humanity throughout that time. They fed me. They were like, here, have some food, because obviously I was skeletic. My mother always described, the first time she saw me, she said, you look like Jesus Christ on the cross. I had to stay strong. And I don't know, I can't remember where I saw this. I think it might be in the Bible, actually. It is when you're weak that you have to be strong. And that's really what kept me going. I was like, this is the moment you prove yourself to be a strong human being. And there's no other choice.